Tardigrada. Pretty cool little phylum. These guys are kind of weird. They are in clade Panarthropoda, which is indicated by this little PA right here. However, even though they are in clade Panarthropoda, they are not the sister clade to Arthropoda. They are actually the sister to clade Onychophora, which is itself the sister clade to Arthropoda. So they're like two phyla removed, roundabouts. There are 3 different classes: Eutardigrada, Mesotardigrada, and Heterotardigrada. However, these classes, unless you specifically study tardigrades, are kind of hard to tell apart. So everything that I'm going to say is just going to be general phylum Tardigrada, not necessarily the individual classes. However, a fun fact, a Mesotardigrada species known as Thermozodium isaki is only found in hot springs near Nagasaki, Japan, and they have not been found since the end of World War II when the atomic bombs dropped. It's unclear as to whether or not that is because the radiation killed them or because they're simply in their tomb stage and haven't been found yet. Their tomb stage I will talk about in a few slides. They do have these very short legs. They are hollow and generally just an extension of the body cavity, and they terminate in either claws or adhesive pads or discs. If they are claws, there can be anywhere from 1 to a dozen claws on each foot, and these claws or discs are used to grab prey items or the substrate that the tardigrades live on. They also have a cuticle that is shed periodically. It can also often be ornamented. The cuticle is shed during ecdysis along with the buccal canal, stylets, stylet supports, and claws, which means these guys cannot eat whilst they undergo ecdysis, as the buccopharyngeal canal, shown here, and the stylets are integral as a part of their feeding. The stylets pierce a cell wall, allowing them to suck the fluid inside a plant or animal cell into the buccopharyngeal canal and then into the rest of the gut. And finally, out through the anus, they do have a complete gut. Yes, they also have large salivary glands that aid in digestion and are what produces the new stylets and stylet supports after ecdysis. So their salivary glands are often called stylet glands. In terms of reproduction, these guys are, for the most part, gonochoric. There are a few parthenogenic or hermaphroditic species. The parthenogenic ones tend to be more terrestrial. And they also generally go fertilized via internal fertilization. For the most part, the seminal fluid is inserted into the female's cloaca. However, shown here is a form of indirect fertilization. It's not really broadcast spawning, but the male will deposit the seminal fluid into the female's cuticle rather than into her cloaca. And then when she undergoes ecdysis, she will lay her eggs inside the cuticle. These are the eggs shown here. And the eggs will be fertilized that way. It is a little interesting way of going about fertilization. Not much is known about their embryonic development, although it does seem like they undergo radial cleavage. So there's that. The thing they are known for, however, is their anabiosis and cryptobiosis. So anabiosis is the ones up here. Anabiosis, metabolism slows down, however, is not to the extreme that cryptobiosis is. Cryptobiosis is what's known as their tune stage, where they show no outward signs of life. However, they can completely recover once they are rehydrated. They can recover and become an active tune once again, or an active, this is their tune, this is inactive, an active tardigrade once again. And they do this by insisting or pulling their legs in, losing their body water, and secreting a double-walled cuticle around. This is how they survived 6 months in space, and how they got to be known as extremophiles. Because they are extremophiles, they can live in habitats from basically the bottom of the ocean to the highest mountain. This habitat specifically is known as a cryoconite hole, which is a hole in a glacier that fills with cryoconite or frozen dust. And in these holes, in a 2016 study in the Arctic, they found about 90% of the holes that they surveyed had some species of tardigrade. However, these holes in the Arctic are too unstable for there to be any real rich, diverse, any significant difference in the abundance or diversity of tardigrades in the holes based on the size of the hole, the depth of the hole, or the elevation of the hole, which is a departure from an earlier study done in the Antarctic on the same type of habitat, cryoconite holes, but they are more stable in the Antarctic. So there was a difference in the abundance of tardigrades based on the elevation. Lower elevations tended to have more tardigrades versus higher elevations, which was interesting. Tardigrades were also found living on Antarctic moss, which can grow near cryoconite holes. They don't necessarily have to, but they can. And an interesting thing was, although tardigrades can eat plant material, they were more likely in these moss colonies to be found eating cyanobacteria or green algae rather than the moss itself, which I just find interesting because they're perfectly capable of eating them. They just choose not to. Not sure whether that is a choice to not eat their habitat or just it's easier for them to eat bacteria and green algae rather than a giant, comparatively plant. Other than that, these guys tend to be pretty small. About 0.5 millimeter to 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters would be a big tardigrade. That's about all I got on these guys. They're pretty cool. Not a lot of research has been done on them, so there's not a lot of information out there other than their phylogeny, which there have been several studies done on the phylogeny of these guys. So that's interesting, but there's not a lot done on their embryonic development. So that could be an interesting thing to study if you wanted to study that.